What is up, fellas? We are back for another UFC predictions video, this time for UFC Fight Night, or I should say UFC Vegas 100. Magny versus Prates. We have an absolute thrill ride at the UFC Apex. How shocking. It's an okay card with a compelling main event, I would say. Um, let's jump right into it, fellas. But before we do, you should subscribe. We're almost at 100. I'm looking at you. I want you as my 100th subscriber. You could be the 100th man. It's free. Why not? Let's jump right into it. Kicking us off at women's bantamweight, we have Melissa Mullins taking on Claudia Segula. I'm going with Melissa Mullins here in this matchup over Claudia Segula. When you dig into Segula's record and any of her fights, if you watch them, the level, I just don't see like a real UFC level fighter. It's not like Melissa Mullins is exactly, a demon or anything. But this Segula chick, uh, her record is a little bit spotty. Obviously, a low level of opponents. A decision or two that I didn't think particularly went her way. She was controlled. I can't remember the lady she fought. Off the top of my head. Um, these are all UDs. One of these was a fucking robbery, but I can't remember which one. But she was controlled in the grappling very handedly for 2 rounds in that fight. And I think Melissa Mullins, she has UFC experience against decent fighters, generally speaking. And she has a grappling game. I think Melissa Mullins here can beat Claudia Segula. I do think Segula's a bit better in the striking, but not by a large enough margin to where I want to pick her in any type of way, just because she's largely not been tested or proven. And this is, I mean, the test for her to see if she's even UFC level, which I would argue she isn't. Melissa Mullins got to win over Alexiva, big power puncher. Fought Nora Cornell, who I kind of thought she would beat Nora Cornell, but Nora Cornell hit her with a shot to the body and finished her that way. But she has experience against a decent level of fighters, I would say, at least more so than Claudia Segula. So I'm going to lean Melissa Mullins working her grappling and being able to control Claudia Segula over 3 rounds and winning herself a decision. Moving up to middleweight, Trishan Gore versus Antonio Tricoli. This is a little bit of a tricky one, largely just because I don't think Antonio Tricoli is very good at all, but he is enormous for this division. And Gore, I think, is skill for skill. I think he's a much better fighter than Antonio Tricoli, but he does have a pretty big size disadvantage that he needs to overcome, and also he just hasn't been active. Like, when was Mr. Gore's last fight? It was at least over a year ago. It feels like forever ago. 2022, a win over Josh Fremd. Not the greatest wins. Gilbert Urbina's a fine win. Lost to Brian Battle at middleweight, so meh. TKO'd by Cody Brundage. That's a terrible look. And then sub Josh Fremd. Not a lot of UFC wins that are very good. But as far as Tricoli, his UFC debut was against Shara Bullet, and he lost by TKO. Somehow he lasted longer than fucking Armin Petrosian, but he was literally just a punching bag in that fight with no offense to speak of really at all. He was just able to take a lot of damage. So this is kind of a tricky fight because I could maybe see a little bit of value on Tricoli as an underdog just because he has some good submission skills and he's got an insane frame for this division. But largely, I think I'm going to lean with Trishan Gore. I just think he's a little bit better in the stand-up for sure. He does have submissions of his own. He does have a takedown. He's definitely, in my opinion, more powerful on the feet. So I'm just gonna lean Gore. But he hasn't been in there lately, so I'm worried about this. This is kind of a tricky fight. I could see this going either way, just because of Gore's inactivity. But I think Gore gets this done. I actually think he can get a TKO over Antonio Tricoli, and probably a TKO or a decision. I don't know if he's really going to want to grapple with this guy just because he does have a pretty good jiu-jitsu base. So I think largely this fight will take place on the feet, and I would give Gore the slight advantage there, even though he is the much smaller guy. Moving up to bantamweight, Cody Stamann versus Damon Blacksher. Guys, I'm going with Damon Blacksher here. Despite how bad his last fight was, he got instantly KO'd in his last fight, in a fight I thought he would probably win. He didn't really get to show all that Muay Thai he was working on. He got dropped by just a straight 1-2 and slept into oblivion. But I don't think that's something he has to worry about so much with a guy like Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann's a wrestler. That's about it. And when I say wrestler, like he's not like I like to separate the terms wrestler from grappler. You know what I mean? Like Cody Stamann could maybe take you down, but he's not doing shit with it. You know what I mean? And Damon Blacksher has good grappling himself. He's got a good takedown. He was able to take down Mario Bautista, and defend takedowns for Mario Bautista. He's got a very good submission game. He's got good striking. He's been working on it. He's been, I believe, at Tiger Muay Thai sharpening up his striking skills. I think he's a better striker than Cody Stamann. I don't think Stamann's going to be able to control him over 3 rounds. Because Damon Blacksher has like a giant size advantage. He has a giant reach advantage, and I think he's got a submission advantage as well. I think Damon Blacksher is definitely the side here. I don't see him getting like fluke knocked out like he did in his last fight. I'm not saying that last fight was a fluke, but I'm just saying, you know, have those two guys fight 10 times. I don't think Blacksher gets KO'd by the first punch that hits him very often. But yeah, I'm going to go with Damon Blacksher here. I think he's just going to put on a clinic against Cody Stamann and win himself maybe a decision here. I could also see maybe a submission because Cody Stamann's not unsubmittable, and Damon Blacksher does have pretty good subs. So I could see that as well, but I think I'm going to lean Damon Blacksher here by decision over Cody Stamann. Ugh. Moving up to welterweight, Matthew Semelsberger versus Charles Radke. There's a lot of fights on this card where there's just not that many trustworthy fellows. I'll say that. Matt Semelsberger is one of them. I'm gonna go with Charles Radke over Matthew Semelsberger just because I can't trust Matthew Semelsberger at all. He's just unreliable. He could knock down Charles Radke 6 times in this fight and still find a way to lose. So I don't trust it. Semelsberger does have really good power in his hands. Lately, he's kind of been looking a little bit meh. Like he's been looking just kind of stuck in the mud lately. He's never been a guy known for his like movement, but he just doesn't seem like he's quite got it anymore. Even though he's only 31, it's just the vibe I get from him. He's a very slow plodding guy, but he's been looking more slow and more plodding lately. Whereas Charles Radke, his last fight, I believe he fought Gilbert Urbina, or was it Prates first? I can't remember. Prates was his most recent one. He got TKO with a beautiful knee to the body by Carlos Prates, but before that, knocked out Gilbert Urbina, beat Blood Diamond, who's fucking awful. But I think Radke has a pretty good style for Semelsberger. Radke can push a hard 3 rounds. He's got a little bit of grappling in him. He's got good power. He likes a good scrappy fight, and Semelsberger likes that too. I think this fight should be fun, but I'm just going to lean Charles Radke just because I think he's a little bit more consistent and trustworthy. Honestly, that's really the only reason. Because Semelsberger, he has power. And that's it. Like, I don't know. He's got okay jiu-jitsu. His grappling is not great. His striking defense isn't great either. I can see Radke putting a pace on Semelsberger and making him tired in the later rounds and maybe getting himself a decision win here. Obviously, you know, Semelsberger could bonk him upside the head and kill him, but he might still find a way to lose that fight, so who really knows? Moving up to welterweight, Elezu Zaleski dos Santos versus Zachary Scroggin. This matchup was just made, so I just got done watching some of Zachary Scroggin's fights. Big dude, big fucking dude. He has a calf kick. He's got a little bit of grappling. Like his submission skills aren't terrible. His grappling's not terrible. What I noticed though is, man, his striking defense as far as his hands go, he has a really ugly looking overhand right that I don't think he's going to find much success on here. And he does not really pull his hands up to his head like you would want when you're finding a guy in Zaleski dos Santos who is known for fucking killing people with like wheel kicks. You know? I don't think I think this is just a hard matchup for Zachary Scroggin in his debut. The last undefeated guy I saw make a debut against Alezu Zaleski dos Santos was Benoit Saint Denis, and he literally got mugged. He got beaten so badly. I genuinely thought Benoit Saint Denis was going to be the first man to die in the octagon. um, Zaleski dos Santos, he's got a very well-rounded skill set. He's very explosive. He's got good anti-grappling, good grappling defense. He's got submissions. He can get a takedown of his own if he wants. He's got a wealth of experience against really high-level guys. He's got good power. I think I'm just gonna trust in Zaleski dos Santos here, especially because he was in camp for Nicholas Dalby, so you know he was in the trenches because he knew there was going to be a hard 3-round fight ahead of him. So I trust in Zaleski's preparation more than Zachary Scroggin coming in here on short notice against a very tough veteran guy who really hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. Not really. I mean, he's not at his absolute peak, but he's not. I don't think he's completely washed yet. Like he competed pretty well with Randy Brown not that long ago, who's a similar frame to a guy like Zachary Scroggin with, I believe, a little bit less reach. He should have beaten Rinat Fakretnov. Rinat Fakretnov low-key should be 0-3 in his last 3, but he keeps getting these decisions. Yeah, I'm going with Zaleski dos Santos here. I think he could just give this young man a vet lesson and win a decision here. But Scroggin he's a big, powerful guy with decent submission skills. So maybe, I don't know. We will see. Moving up to bantamweight, Gaston Balanos versus Cortavius Romeus. Another fight where it's two guys where I'm just like, I don't trust really either of you. Gaston Balanos, kickboxer. Cortavius Romeus, kind of well-rounded, honestly. I think Romeus is the side here, but I do not like this line. I think it's a little bit wide because Romeus has shown on occasion to have some striking holes and just kind of go for it. And his fight that he lost on the Contender Series, he literally just sprinted at, I believe it was Ramon Tavares, and they just banged it out in the pocket for like a minute, and then Romeus kept getting caught on the feet, and he just kept windmilling punches until he was flatline KO'd. So it's not a great look for a minus 200. But however, in his last fight on the Contender Series, he did look much more improved. You did see flashes of that that kind of willingness to just swang and bang, I guess, which does give me pause against a guy like Gaston Balanos, who does have some good power in his hands. But honestly, all things considered, I don't really think Balanos is that good of a kickboxer. If I'm being honest, he kind of reaches, he kind of overswings. It's not like he's defensively the most sound guy either. And I think he's a little bit slower on the feet. And honestly, I would say he's a little less technical as well. And I think if we're going to mix it up into the grappling, or maybe controlling a guy up against the cage in the clinch, I think Romeus will have that fold to his game more so than a Gaston Balanos. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna like very slightly lean Cortavius Romeus here. I think he's a bit faster on the feet. He's got some pop as well. Chin, meh. Could he mix it up? Yes, I do think he can, and it would be in his best interest too. I think he can beat Gaston Balanos by decision here in this fight. Just being a little bit faster and a little bit more willing to engage in clinch exchanges in the grappling, I think. Closing out the prelims at women's strawweight, Karolina Kovalkov versus Denise Gomes. Denise Gomes is minus 550? Jesus fucking Christ. That is a wide line. I'm picking Denise Gomes over Karolina Kovalkov, but that line is fucking crazy to me. There's a lot of chalky ass lines on this card, and we'll talk about them when they pop up. But geez Louise, Denise Gomes, good striking, can mix it up pretty well. She has real power in her hands. She hits very hard. She was the first person to knock out Yasmin Uruguay, who we kind of thought would have been a contender skill-wise, but she actually has no chin. She beat Eduarda Mora, which is a good win. Bruna Brazil TKO'd her. That's a win that's aging pretty well. Lost to Luke Boonmi, who's pretty solid. Lost to Angela Hill, who's very good. I think she can get one over on a 39-year-old Karolina Kovalkov. Kovalkov, she beats Diana Belbita, meh. Beats Vanessa Demopoulos, meh. Gomes Juarez, eh. Like these wins, like she's winning, but like not against the level of competition. I think Denise Gomes has intangibles in this fight more so than any of these ladies, where it's just like the it factor of the fact that she just hits very fucking hard. She's got good striking and she hits very hard. So I think Denise Gomes can land big shots early and inflict damage early to bank herself the first couple of rounds here in this fight. She also has a takedown. She can get it too, I think. I think Denise Gomes will win this fight by probably decision, maybe a split decision. I could see it because Kovalkov does kind of get better as the fight gets going a little bit. So I could see her kind of coming alive and waking up a little bit in the later half of the fight. But I'm going to trust in the power of Denise Gomes and the striking advantage that I think she does have to bank her the first couple of rounds just on damage and outlanding Karolina Kovalkov before she starts to slow down. So yeah. Ooh, this is an interesting fight, actually. Moving up to the middleweight division. Mansur Abdul Malik versus Dusko Torovich. Mansur Abdul Malik, once again, very fucking chalky line. This guy's pretty good. I think this guy is a good fighter. This guy is very well-rounded, in my opinion, and he got to win against a guy who I don't think is actually all that bad, and Wes Schultz. He really had to work in this fight against Wes Schultz. That's why I wanted to point this out. He worked harder than he has in, I believe, any of his fights. I believe he's got everything, as a first-round finish, basically. And it was good to see him extended here in this fight deep into the second round against Wes Schultz. Dusko Torovich, when I talk about guys who are inconsistent, this fucking guy, dude. His wins in the UFC are bad. Jordan Wright, bad. Maki Pitolo, bad. And then you see, somehow Gregory Rodriguez took him 3 rounds. Chidi Njokuani killed him. Christian Leroy Duncan won, but I believe Dusko got injured. So he's also coming off of an injury as well. I can't remember what it was. Was it an arm? It might have been an arm. Got KO'd by Punahele Soriano in 2021. So not a very skilled fighter that knocked him out. And before that, Taquan Townsend he beat. Like these are not good fighters. I'm just saying. And his chin's a little bit suspect as well. And a guy like Mansur Abdul Malik, who I think is decently well-rounded, good power in his hands, big guy for the division, 79 inches of reach. I think he can beat Dusko Torovich. Now, maybe Torovich lasts a little longer. And I did see Abdul Malik kind of slow down a little bit in that fight against Wes Schultz. But he was able to power through it. But I think if Dusko Torovich gives Abdul Malik a little bit of momentum, he gives him an inch, he's going to take a mile. And I think if he does that, I think he can get a finish here over the very finishable Dusko Torovich. I do think this line should be a little bit closer, though. But I am going to go with Mansur Abdul Malik. I think he's probably going to get a TKO finish over Dusko Torovich here in this matchup. But we'll see. Maybe Torovich looks rejuvenated after his last fight. Who knows? Moving up to women's strawweight, Luana Panero versus Jillian Robertson. This is a pretty open and shut case for me, guys. I'm going with Jillian Robertson. She's been getting better every single fight, I think, really. She's looked great, in my opinion. And her submission skills have always been very elite, but she's had the ability lately to just get these fights to the ground very easily. So, lost to Tabitha Ritchie. Everybody does. Even when Tabitha Ritchie loses a decision, she still wins it, so I don't really care. Beat the shit out of Michelle Waterson Gomez, no diff. Destroyed Poliana Viana. I forget your fucking name. Piera Rodriguez, that is what I thought it was. Subbed Piera Rodriguez. This is actually an underrated win. Because Piera Rodriguez isn't bad. Because she beat Carnelossi. She was beating the dog shit out of Carnelossi. So Jillian Robertson's her only actual loss. which is very impressive. And she's a good fighter, this Piera Rodriguez. Agapova, not so much. But Jillian Robertson's been on a little bit of a hot streak lately, despite losing to Tabitha Ricci. And Luana Panero, her best win is Michelle Waterson Gomes, correct? Yes. By split decision in 2023. Yeah, she's getting taken down and submitted. I don't really need to say much more. Jillian Robertson's going to be the bigger lady. She's been improving on the feet. She's been improving her takedowns as well. And once it hits the mat, I can easily see Robertson just strangling her. I don't think Panero's got the submission defense to hang with Jillian Robertson. I don't think she's got the takedown defense to hang with Jillian Robertson, especially when you're giving Robertson a size and frame advantage, and she is going to have one here. I think she's going to get herself another submission win here over Luana Pinheiro. Moving up to bantamweight, Ricky Turcios versus Bernardo Sopai, or Sopaj. I believe it's pronounced Sopai. I'm going with Bernardo Sopai here. I don't think Ricky Turcios is that good. Now, Ricky Turcios is the bigger guy, and he is going to enjoy a reach advantage here, which I think is a decent enough advantage for Ricky Turcios. But Bernardo Sopai, in his last fight against Vinicius Oliveira, despite losing in one of the most horrific KOs I've ever seen, he was looking really good for the first half of that fight. If I remember correctly, he was dominating Vinicius Oliveira in the grappling, and he was hanging on the feet as well. Like, I was like, fuck, this guy's really quite good. Like, I saw some of his regional fights, and I was like, oh, he might be able to get one over Vinicius Oliveira, but I didn't think he was going to, and he didn't. But I wasn't expecting the grappling to be such a factor for him in that matchup like it was. I mean, Ricky Simon couldn't take down Vinicius Oliveira, but Bernardo Sopai did. You know what I mean? Like, he showed a very good account of himself for such a young guy. I mean, the guy's my fucking age. But that knockout might have taken something away from him, durability-wise, so I do worry about that, and maybe confidence-wise. But the benefit of that is Ricky Turcios, he's not Vinicius Oliveira. Like, Bernardo Sopai showed up and competed well throughout 2 rounds, basically. Not so much the 3rd round, but competed well for the first 2 rounds against a guy who's way more dangerous than Ricky fucking Turcios. Ricky Turcios, volume guy, good scrambles, got some submission skills himself. I think he's going to be out-strengthened, out-muscled in the grappling by Bernardo Sopai. And I think on the feet, despite having a reach disadvantage, I think Sopai just has better striking. Maybe Turcios can kind of freeze him up with a bunch of volume, but I really don't see that happening. I actually think Sopai can knock out Ricky Turcios. Sopai does have good power in his hands. And Ricky Turcios' chin, I don't trust it. He's been KO'd before. And also, I've been hearing, there's been talk about him getting KO'd in training a time or two. I don't know how true that is. But if that is the case, I do worry about his chin and his confidence level. But yeah, I think Sopai here, this is his fight to win. I do think this line's a little bit wide, just because you don't really know what Sopai is going to show up after that knockout. Like, he could look like a ghost of himself. So there is that unknown there. But I am going to lean Bernardo Sopai here. I think he's more technical on the feet. He's got more power in his hands. I think despite being flatline KO'd, he'll probably have a little bit of a better chin. Whereas if he lands on Turcios, I think Turcios will feel it more than he will if Turcios hits him. And I think he's got a better wrestling game. And I think he could also maybe latch up a submission, or I think he has good enough submission defense to stay out of Ricky Turcios' submission attempts and keep himself safe in an extended grappling exchange. Moving up to middleweight, this is kind of a banger, actually. Gerald Meerschaert versus the debuting Reinier de Ritter, former double one championship champion. So this guy is pretty fucking legit. These guys are both very good grapplers. So this should be a pretty exciting fight, I think. I'm going to go with Reinier de Ritter. Because I think, actually, Gerald Meerschaert does better against strikers than guys who are grapplers. I really believe that. He's going to be the bigger guy in there. And he's used to fighting bigger guys because a lot of the guys in one championship are, they're on some fucking extra strength Sawzul, especially the guy who's beaten Reinier de Ritter. his two professional losses are to the same guy. This fine gentleman, Anatoly Malikin. This guy is on fucking gear. This guy is a fucking mutant. This guy would probably finish Gerald Meerschaert within 2 rounds. So I think Reiner de Ritter here has a better style to beat a guy like Gerald Meerschaert. I don't think Reiner de Ritter's a guy like a Edmund Shabazian who's going to blow his wad really early, land some shots, kind of fall in love with it, blow his wad, get taken down, and get beaten up. That's not really Reiner de Ritter's style. He's a pretty laid back and patient fighter, and he kind of picks his moments well. And I think in the grappling, I do think he's a little bit better. Gerald Meerschaert's really good at getting submissions, but he's also very good at getting submitted himself. He has almost double-digit submission losses, I believe. He has 8. He's 29-8 in the sub. 29 is insane, but he is submittable. I think Reiner de Ritter is more of a positional submission guy. He's better at getting himself in a position to submit a guy than a guy like Gerald Meerschaert. Gerald Meerschaert's kind of a guy who will wear you out, and then when you have nothing left for him, he just fucking locks that shit in and you're cooked. Reiner de Ritter kind of just gets those positions for himself whenever he wants. You know, he doesn't really need to wear you out. He can just decide, he's like, all right, this guy's getting submitted. And he will do that. I actually think Reiner de Ritter here is going to submit Gerald Meerschaert here in this fight. I just think he's a little bit better. He's going to be bigger. He's the younger guy. I think he's a little sharper on the feet too. I think he's just a little bit of a better grappler, but I think this fight should be fun. Maybe we see Gerald Meerschaert, the greatest middleweight of all time, show up again, but I don't think so. I think Reiner de Ritter is going to get this one. Moving up to bantamweight, Cody Garbrandt versus Miles Johns. Guys, I'm going to be frank. Okay? I'm going to be honest. I don't like Miles Johns. I think he sucks. But I keep fading him, and he keeps winning. So it's actually driving me a little bit insane. And I want to fade Miles Johns again. But I have a working theory, fellas. I think that if I pick Miles Johns to win, I think he will lose. Hear me out. That's why I'm picking Miles Johns. I think I'll jinx him. I think I'll jinx him, and then we'll get a Cody Garbrandt W, and we can all rejoice in happiness. Either that or Miles Johns actually wins, and I'm sad. But let's actually break down the fight. Miles Johns, big power guy, okay wrestling, no cardio really, but it has been looking better lately. Cody Garbrandt, former bantamweight champion, the fall from grace. Very good hand speed, very good power, pretty well-rounded as well. He's got a takedown of his own. I just think Garbrandt is a little washed. Not as washed as some people would have you believe. Like some people, believe like you could fucking throw a napkin at Cody Garbrandt's head and he'd fall unconscious. I don't think so. He took some good shots from Figueiredo. He was actually landing good shots on Figueiredo as well, but I don't rate Figueiredo stand-up that much, to be honest. I just think Miles Johns is just going to be the bigger, stronger guy in there. I don't feel like he's going to fear, or he has to fear, the power so much as Cody Garbrandt does. The reason I say that is because Miles Johns, he's just going to be riding more confidence in general. He's been winning fights. Cody Garbrandt hasn't. And Cody Garbrandt's last 2 wins were against Brian Kelleher and oh my fuck God, Trevin Jones. He's not even in the UFC anymore, is he? No, he's in Cage Warriors. Yeah, his last 2 wins are not against great competition. I think Miles Johns would probably finish both of these guys, to be honest. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Miles Johns. I kind of hate to say it, but I think he'll probably win a decision here in this matchup. I don't think he's gonna put Garbrandt out. Honestly, I don't. But Miles Johns has been showing improved cardio in his fight. Won a 3-rounder against Cody Gibson. Granted, Cody Gibson looked fucking horrible in that fight, but that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you saw Cody Gibson's last performance. He looked fucking elite, honestly. Not elite, but he looked great. I'm going to go with Miles Johns. I think he's got a little bit more of a well-rounded skill set. He's been improving his cardio. He's got power in his hands, and he's got all the confidence in the world going into this one. I hope Cody Garbrandt wins, but I don't want to fade Miles Johns again and be fucking wrong and look like an idiot. Moving up to welterweight, our main event, Neil Magny coming off of a loss in UFC Vegas 100 main event. Neil Magny coming off a loss in the UFC Vegas 100 main event versus Carlos Prates. Guys, I gotta go with Carlos Prates here. This line is batshit insane though. Minus 850 is a insane amount of disrespect for Neil Magny, considering he does tend to fraud check some of these guys coming up. He does. So plus 500. Hey, you know, but I'm going with Carlos Prates here, because I don't think Neil Magny's style is going to work against Carlos Prates. I don't think. Now, this is 5 rounds, so maybe if this fight gets deeper somehow and we start to see the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, maybe Neil Magny starts putting it on him. But Neil Magny must wrestle from the get-go. Normally, Neil Magny is kind of a guy who frame bullies people, gets the clinch, pushes them up against the cage, and controls them. I don't think we want to engage in the clinch all that much with a guy with the words Muay Thai tattooed across his fucking clavicles. I'm going to be honest. I think you might be a little bit outmatched in the clinch. And in the striking, I mean, Carlos Prates is fucking nasty. He's got power in all of his extremities. All of them. But yeah, no, he's got very good striking. His weaknesses in the striking tend to be straight punches, but Neil Magny's not a great straight puncher, to be honest. And even if he was, he doesn't really have the power. I think Prates here is just going to destroy Neil Magny on the feet. If Magny doesn't wrestle early, Prates has nice calf kicks as well, and Neil Magny has a very well-known weakness to those. I just think Prates is a real problem on the feet, and if Neil Magny can't take him down and him clinching him up against the cage, I don't think it's going to work that well. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's going to go very well if he does that. I think he will be caught by knees and elbows in the clinch if he does do that. And I don't think, honestly, I don't think he's going to be the stronger guy. Prates just kind of has this build where he just looks fucking strong. Now, what we don't really know, I'm not super sure about Prates' takedown defense, so maybe Neil Magny gets a takedown. Could happen. He's going to have to probably go through hell to get one, though. He might get his leg chewed off before he gets one. Neil Magny's got a ton of experience. He has the ability to win these later rounds, I think. But largely, I just think Prates is just too dangerous, too fast. You know, not like I don't really give Neil Magny a puncher's chance in this fight because I don't think he has one. He must grapple. Like I don't think he's doing shit with Prates on the feet. You know, Li Jingliang looked lost out there. You know, that's a guy with a puncher's chance, and he looked lost. He was like, "What the fuck is happening?" Like he would get hit by this Prates guy, and he would be like, "Holy shit!" You could see it in his face, and that's Li Jingliang. That guy's got a historical lead chin before he got finished there. Granted, that was Li Jingliang coming off of like spine surgery, so you know, and a huge layoff. So I'm not gonna jerk off Carlos Prates that much, but Li Jingliang's a hard guy to finish. So and Prates finished him bad. Like this guy's got real legit power and real nasty striking. I don't think Neil Magny's straight punches that's what he would need to use to beat a guy like Prates on the feet, I think, and I just don't think he's really going to be able to find those. I think he's going to get his leg chewed up. I think if he tries to clinch, I think he'll get fucked up in the clinch, to be honest. And if Prates defends takedowns even like moderately well, and Magny's done, I think. I think Prates is going to win this fight by TKO in like round 2. Unless Onk finds a way, but I don't think so. I'm going with Prates TKO. But yeah, that's it for this one, boys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.